What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I decided that today is going to be the day where we finally go back to saying some terrible things about some terrible Pokemon, which is one of the original things that grew this channel into what it is today. This channel went from 50 subscribers all the way to like 400 something when I started just saying bad things about Pokemon. So I figured, let's do a tier list series, start at Generation 1 and work our way all the way to Generation 9, talking about all of the Pokemon that we do not like and also the ones that we do like, okay? I think that will make a big difference. So let's go ahead and talk about this, and let's get started with Bulbasaur. Now, I'm going to, because every single pre-evolution is included, I'm not going to talk about its potential. I'm going to talk about it as a Pokemon. What I love about Bulbasaur is it's the dual typing. It is both grass and poison. At level 15, before it evolves into Ivysaur, it gets Poison Powder, Stun Spore, and Sleep Powder, which I think are really, really good. And it also gets Vine Whip as its main grass ability, which absolutely destroys Brock. I'm going to give Bulbasaur, in my opinion, for a first evolution, a solid C. I think a solid C is fitting. I really do. I think Ivysaur is just Bulbasaur, but just a little better. It's not quite Venusaur level where it gets a lot of its zhuzh, if that makes sense. And I think based off that, I also have to put Ivysaur C, but I'm going to put the better Pokemon on the left side. So left is better than right. So I think that's a fair thing. Now, Venusaur is not like an elite Pokemon. It's not like this perfect, amazing Pokemon that there's nothing wrong with it at all. In my personal opinion, I think it's just a B. Dual typing is great. It can get a lot of good moves because of its dual typing. But if you think about this in just generalization to Generation 1, not as strong as some of the others that are coming up. Now, Venusaur did get a Mega. It got Mega Venusaur. And all Mega Pokemon are really, really good. I'm going to throw Mega Venusaur at an A. I think it's really, really good. It's not S tier, but it is phenomenal. It's a great Pokemon. Now, let's talk about Charmander. Fire was the most broken, one of the most broken types in Generation 1. Other than, of course, Ghost, right? I believe Ghost, people said, was the most broken type in Generation 1 at the time. Fire's very good. Fire is phenomenal. And Charmander is a good start. They even give it Metal Claw at, I believe, level 8 or 9, so that you have something to take out Brock. The problem is just it doesn't work out because, again, it's a frail fire type. But I would consider Charmander to be a better starter than Bulbasaur. I really would. And I would consider Charmeleon a better starter than Ivysaur. I think Charmeleon does everything Charmander does, but better. And it's a little bit bulkier as well. But we got to talk about Charizard, right? Because the thing is with Charizard is this thing is one of the most infamous Pokemon in all of Pokemon for a reason. Charizard is an absolute monster, and they really, really messed up not giving Charizard the Dragon type because he absolutely deserved it. Charizard is an S tier Pokemon. There is no question about it. Charizard is an S tier Pokemon. And actually, let's go ahead and put our Mega Charizards in there as well. I personally think Mega Charizard X is better than Y because it gave him the Dragon typing. And both of those are just phenomenal. But Charizard is an S tier Pokemon. There is absolutely no question about that. Zero question. Zero question. I think Squirtle's the worst of all the starters, in my opinion. I do. I like Squirtle. I just think it doesn't have enough offensive firepower. Same with Wartortle. I really don't think it does. And I would honestly, same thing with I did with Venusaur. Blastoise is better, but I would put Blastoise at a B. I don't think Blastoise is that impressive. Mega Blastoise, I would also put as a high B, as a matter of fact. I think Mega Blastoise just wasn't quite what we wanted out of it. I think Mega Venusaur was much, much, much better. So let's talk about some other Pokemon. Let's talk about Caterpie and Weedle. I think we know where these are going, but the order is specific. Weedle has Poison typing and gets access to Poison Sting and its same type attack bonus. So Weedle is a better Pokemon than Caterpie. But there are worse Pokemon sitting here, and it's Metapod first. No. It's Kakuna first, and then Metapod. Because again, Kakuna gets at least the Poison typing. But these Pokemon by themselves only get Hardened. So they're not much. But in 3 levels, they become something better. And that's where you get Butterfree. And I think Butterfree, while it's still D tier, has a very diverse moveset, which is what I really like about it. It gets Confusion, it gets Psychic at later levels. It even gets, I think, things like Leech Seed and Giga Drain, and learns a lot of different TMs. It's just very fragile, and its damage doesn't really equate to its fragileness to the point where it's almost useless. Beedrill, in my opinion, is a lot better than Butterfree in a big way. I think Beedrill is, quite honestly, if I had to guess, one of the most surprising Pokemon, because it looks so weak compared to Kakuna and Weedle before it, but it is actually pretty strong. And Mega Beedrill, they did a great job with, and I think Mega Beedrill is honestly up in the C tier. They made Beedrill better. It still isn't perfect, but they made it better. They made it better. And I think that made a really, really big difference for them. Let's talk about the Pidgey line. The Pidgey line is one of the best. I love these things. Childhood nostalgia definitely steps in the way for some people on these. And I think just because the normal flying type is not the greatest type in the world, Pidgey himself is at a C tier. But I actually honestly would put Pidgeotto and Pidgeot both at a B tier. I think the starters are still better than both of them, but I think with the movesets that they get and their overall offensive power, and the fact that flying does a lot of things for you in Generation 1 with all the gyms that are weak to flying, I think that really, really helps you. So I personally really like Pidgeotto and Pidgeot here at a B tier. I think that's solid. And then Mega Pidgeot will definitely go into A. I actually think Mega Pidgeot is better than Mega Venusaur, in my personal opinion. I think it's really, really good if you run it specially and you bring things like Heat Wave and such to it. I think it's very, very strong. Let's talk about Rattata next. Rattata and Raticate are only good because they get Hyper Fang at such a low level. They fall off so hard after they lose their early game firepower. And because of that, they're both C tier. I would personally put Raticate probably... I think I'd put him here. I think he's stronger than both Charmeleon and Ivysaur at the same level. I think he is, absolutely. Now here, in my opinion, are two underrated flying types. Spearow, of course, is not good at all. It doesn't get good moves. It really just has a terrible moveset in Generation 1. I mean, an awful, 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 awful moveset in Generation 1. It's definitely a D tier. I'd actually say that Butterfree is better than it. But Fearow, I think, is actually pretty good. I actually consider Fearow to be much better than Raticate. I think I'd still take Mega Beedrill over it. But Fearow gets Drill Peck, it gets a lot of stronger moves, and this thing is just a monster. I really, really like Fearow. Ekans and Arbok are a tough one in my opinion. I think if you talk about just Generation 1, the fact that these guys get Wrap is enough to get them close to A tier, but that's just not the level of Pokemon that they are. I would say that I would probably take an Ekans over probably a Spearow, but I would definitely take an Arbok over any of these. I think Arbok has a lot more power when you consider things like Poison Tail being part of its repertoire, and I think you can do a lot more things with poison types than you can with normal types, and I think that's a good spot for Arbok. Pikachu and Raichu. I think Pikachu is one of the best first form Pokemon in the game, but that doesn't mean that it's a good Pokemon. Raichu is great, but Pikachu, in all honesty, is worse than all the starters, and I would honestly put Pikachu right here. And then I would probably throw Raichu into B tier. I think Raichu, the fact that he gets Thunderbolt at such a low level is huge for it. And it's a really, really strong Pokemon. It's an absolute powerhouse. I think it does a lot of good things for you with its speed and its offensive ability. I really like Raichu. And I think Pikachu's better than Pidgey. I would take a Pikachu before I took a Pidgey. But I think the rest of that I'm happy with. Sandshrew and Sandslash. These are unfortunately the two most disappointing Pokemon in the entire generation. They're better than the bugs, but they're just not good, and I would honestly put Sandslash right there. It just never got a good moveset. It's fast, but it's weak, and it's just a disappointment to ground types everywhere. It really is. It really is. We've got the Nidoran line now. I'll put male and female in the same spot because they're really the exact same Pokemon. And in all honesty, they don't get any good moves. Both Nidoran and Nidorino and Nidorina both get horrendous moves. Their movesets are absolutely terrible. Their movesets are better than Sandshrew. No, they're not. Sandshrew's better. They're better than Weedle, but that's it. They're not much better than that. And I honestly am comfortable stacking it this way. And the reason why I'm comfortable stacking it this way is because Nidorino is definitely better because it has the ability to evolve into Nidoking. Nidoking is a A-tier Pokemon. It gains the ground typing, and it is much, much, much stronger. Nidoqueen is more defensive. Nidoking is more offensive. Nidoking looks cooler. He's stronger. He's more low-liked. He gets Mega Horn to add to that strength. I think he has a really good moveset. I think he's a perfect typing of poison and ground, which gives you so many resistances. I think Nidoking is absolutely an A-tier Pokemon. Nidoqueen, on the other hand, is definitely a B-tier. I would definitely say she's better than Pidgeotto, and I'd say the same thing about Raichu in that case. Clefairy and Clefable. I think Clefairy and Clefable were not like in their time just yet. They were bulkier Pokemon that were very gimmicky and learned a lot of gimmicky moves like Sing, Metronome, among others. But they didn't really find an identity until they were given the Fairy typing in Gen 6. And once they were given the Fairy typing, in my opinion, that's when things really changed. And so I would honestly put Clefairy as most certainly better than a lot of things over here. Maybe Pikachu's better than it, but I'd probably put it about there. Clefable being a little bulkier makes it a little bit more useful. But even then, I think I'd take Eradicate over it. I really do. I think that's a fair spot. Vulpix and Ninetales are the first fire types that you encounter if you don't start with Charizard. And they're pretty disappointing, in all honesty. They don't really give you the firepower that you need. Look at how many Pokemon I have to rank. This is going to take a while. I think that definitely hurts. I think the fact that it doesn't give you the fire typing, the firepower that you really need makes a difference. I think that really hurts. And so its moveset also sucks. It doesn't really get much until later. I would personally say that Charmander is better than it, but Bulbasaur isn't. And I would put Vulpix there. Ninetales, I would jump ahead being a fully evolved fire type. I think it would probably go right there. I think that's a good fit for it. I think it is better than Arbok, but I do not think that it is better than Fearow. Jigglypuff and Wigglytuff. I would put Jigglypuff in the same place that I put Clefairy. However, I do think Jigglypuff is better. I think Jigglypuff is more bulky. It gets more TMs. It gets a better moveset. And I think that makes a big difference. And unfortunately, Wigglytuff is really not that much better. But I would put Wigglytuff probably above Clefable. I think that's fair. Zubat and Golbat are two Pokemon that are so fast. They are very, very, very fast. Zubat suffers from having a horrendous moveset, and that's one of the biggest issues with Zubat. So I would personally take Zubat, and because his moveset is so bad, regardless of his potential, really kind of belongs like right here. Golbat, on the other hand, in my opinion, is a very good Pokemon, and I would also consider it better than Pidgeotto, and I would put Golbat right there. I think it's probably one of the best flying types in the game, and if Crobat was in this game, it would have won it. Oddish, Gloom, and Vileplume. This is a tough one for me. I think that Oddish for sure is one of the worst Pokemon in the game. It's just not strong enough, but it does have good typing and actually has a good moveset, which is what I really like about it. I would personally put it above Sandslash. I think that it would be more valuable than that, and I would even put Gloom above the Bee and the Butterfree, because Gloom, to an extent, also has a better moveset. It's a little bit more bulky. And then Vileplume is just a better version of Gloom, and I would honestly put Vileplume up in the C tier as well. I would probably put Vileplume right around Ivysaur. I think Ivysaur is probably better than Vileplume. I'd probably put Vileplume right there. I think that's better. I think that's a good spot. Paris is one of the worst Pokemon in the game if it wasn't for the fact that it learns Spore. Because it gets Spore, it gets booted to like... Where'd it go? Oop, there he is. Because of the fact that it gets Spore, it goes like right here. No, move over. It goes right there. Okay. Parasect is just a better version of it, but really not. Just a little bulkier. Not to mention Paris and Parasect have so many weaknesses. Venonat is one of the worst Pokemon in the game as well. I would actually put it right here. Venomoth is a slightly better. It can go right there. Those both Pokemon are absolutely terrible. Diglett and Dugtrio, the first ground types that you can encounter in the game. This is interesting because I like them. Diglett, personally, I think is underrated because of its speed and its overall power, but it is very, very fragile. I mean, so fragile. I think Diglett honestly deserves to be in a C tier, but I would take Diglett over Jigglypuff. Dugtrio, on the other hand, is another Pokemon that's very fast, but just lacks defensive ability. And I think the lack of defense really hurts and actually puts it right here, in my personal opinion. Meowth and Persian are two of the fastest Pokemon in Generation 1, and if you guys didn't know how Generation 1 worked, in Generation 1, there was a glitch where your critical hit chance was increased if your speed was higher. And Meowth and Persian were the two fastest Pokemon in the game. And so because of that, everybody who ran Persian absolutely destroyed everyone. It was one of the best Pokemon in the generation, and in my personal opinion, it is an A tier Pokemon. It's a high A tier Pokemon. It was fast, you could get Slash, and you could crit every single time you used Slash. That thing was absolutely broken. Meowth, on the other hand, didn't quite have that potential just yet, and I would rival Meowth with another normal type like it, such as Pidgey. I think it's really not that much stronger than that. I would actually probably put it above Jigglypuff. I'd put it about right there. I think that's a fair spot for Meowth. Psyduck and Golduck, the two most disappointing Pokemon that should have been Psychic types. Psyduck does have offensive firepower, but not much more than Sandshrew does, so I'm going to put him right here. Golduck's stronger, but like literally just a slightly better version of Psyduck. I really don't see why it would go anywhere else. Mankey and Primeape. These are fighting types that were very, very disappointing. I know people really liked them, but they ended up coming out very, very disappointing. I personally would say that Mankey does beat a lot of these Pokemon I have in this C tier list, but I don't think he's higher than here. I don't think he's higher than there. And I would probably put Primeape above... I put Primeape right there. I think that's better for Primeape. Let's go into the best fire type of the generation that isn't Charizard. Growlithe and Arcanine. Growlithe is very good. I would say that Growlithe is actually a better fire type than Charmeleon is. I think it's faster, it gets better moves, and then when you Firestone this thing and you get yourself an Arcanine, that is an A tier Pokemon. It takes a big jump. It is the second best fire type in the game. Maybe third best. I would actually say that it's better than Moltres. I would. Let's talk about the Poliwag line while we're at it. Well, Poliwag is atrociously terrible. I would probably say that it is worse than Squirtle for sure, but is it better than anything else on this list? I think it's better than Pidgey. I think that's a good spot for it. Poliwhirl, on the other hand, is slightly better, but still not even as good as Wartortle. I actually would say that Mankey's better than it. I'd probably put it there. And then Poliwrath gains the fighting type. But gaining the fighting type doesn't do that much for him. I think it puts him right there. I think that's fair. I think he gets a little better each time. He doesn't get a lot better each time. Abra from Step 1 is a good Pokemon. It's actually a high C tier, even though it's a first form Pokemon. I just think its moveset that it gets and its overall offensive firepower is huge. And because it's fast enough, when you get it, it outspeeds almost anything that it fights. So you're in a really good spot once you get Confusion. I think it goes right there. Kadabra is a much better version, and I think it's actually better than Mega Beedrill. I think Kadabra is much stronger, and it can do a lot of work for you. Alakazam, on the other hand, we know Alakazam is one of the best Pokemon in Generation 1, and it is, in my personal opinion, more valuable to your team than a Persian is. I would definitely put that in A tier, and that means Mega Alakazam is going into S tier. It's one of the first Pokemon that's been there since we put Charizard in the S tier category. I think it definitely deserves it. I would probably take regular Charizard over it still, though, but it's a solid Pokemon. The Machop line. I think Machop is the best first stage fighting Pokemon in the game. He is very good for a first stage. He is very underrated for a first stage. I think that he probably deserves to go right here. I think he could destroy any Pokemon under him on this list. But I think all the Pokemon over him are just much better. Machoke, on the other hand, is a much better version, and this is the version that everybody brought into the Pokemon League because of the fact that they didn't have a friend to trade with. And so you were stuck with a Machoke, and you just had to do what you had to do. So there he is. That's what I went with for Machoke. And Machamp, one of the best Pokemon, definitely an A tier as well next to Arcanine. Machamp is a phenomenal Pokemon. It is so strong. It gets incredible moves. It's a very good Pokemon. The Bellsprout line, on the other hand, is trash. I have never been a fan of the Bellsprout line. It is kind of bulky as time goes on, but they're just not good. They're basically a worse form of Oddish. Slightly worse than the Oddish line. So I'm basically going to do it this way. I think this is fair. I think that Victory Bell is better than Vileplume, and probably better than Ivysaur, though. Where should Victory Bell go? I think the bulk makes a big difference. Is it the best grass type that you can get before if you don't start with Venusaur? It might be the best grass type you can get. There's other ones in there. But yeah, for sure. Underrated Pokemon, underrated typing. Tentacruel and Tentacruel. Tentacruel is bad, okay? It doesn't get good moves, and for its typing, it just doesn't do a whole lot. But it does improve. I think Tentacruel out of this list actually is arguably right here. It just can't do anything. Tentacruel is a big upgrade though, and he's a B tier Pokemon. Tentacruel is definitely a B tier Pokemon. It gets proper moves, it evolves and gets bulkier, very special defensive. This is a special wall with a lot of health. Love this Pokemon, very good. And now we get into offensive power with no defense because of its type. I love Geodude, and it's definitely at least a C tier, and I actually would say it's better than Diglett, but I would stop the comparison there. Graveler, on the other hand, is much better, and because it's a trait evolution, you're stuck with a Graveler the whole game, so you definitely develop some of an attachment to it. And I would put Graveler right there. I think that's a good spot for Graveler. On the other hand, we have Golem, and Golem is better, but not super good. And I would put Golem right there. That's a good spot for him. Ponyta and Rapidash. These are very fast fire types. They are definitely better than Vulpix and Ninetales, no question about it. Are they better than Charmeleon at this point? I'm not sure about that, but I would say that, did I say Vulpix and Ninetales? I did, didn't I? Ponyta and Rapidash. Ponyta and Rapidash. I think Ponyta is better than Raticate. I would put it right there, but Rapidash is actually going to take a bump, and, oop, I dropped it. Rapidash is going to take a bump into the low A tier. I think Rapidash with its speed and physical fire attacks make a big difference. Back in Generation 1, it wasn't much because it was a physical fire type, but now it is a very good Pokemon. I've got Rapidash in an A tier for sure. Let's talk about the Slowpoke line. Slowpoke is a horrendous Pokemon, but it gets decent moves and it has good typing. It's also pretty bulky. It's just very slow, and it's difficult to use because of that. I would actually put Slowpoke, I think, right here next to Poliwrath. I think I would. Beyond that, Slowbro isn't that much of an upgrade. It's bulkier, it's more powerful, it's still just as slow. It is a better Psychic type than Abra, though, so I'll put it there. But even then, is it better than these other Pokemon before it? It is. It is. Mega Slowbro. This was a disappointing Pokemon. This was a disappointing Mega. Just like Blastoise, it didn't quite live up to what we expected out of it, but it is probably better than everything else before it here. Magnemite and Magneton were broken in Generation 1. They were broken. They were so good. But if you had a fighting type, not a fighting type, a Diglett, which you could catch in the Diglett Cave before Lieutenant Surge, you couldn't do anything. So I think Magnemite is a worse electric type than Pikachu. Magneton, however, is a pretty good Pokemon, but I wouldn't take it over any of the B tier Pokemon. Farfetch. This is one of the worst Pokemon in the game. I think Paris is probably worse than it. I look at the ones around it. I think Parasect because of Spore. I think Paris because of Spore is better. I think Venomoth is better. I think Venonat is better. I think Farfetch goes right there, and I don't think we need to explain it. Doduo and Dodrio. Very fun Pokemon to use. I'm interested. What should I do here with these guys? I think Doduo belongs in a C tier for sure. I would put him like right there. Dodrio is faster. is stronger. And he's definitely a low beer tier as well. Seal is absolute garbage. Let's put Seal. I put him right there. Is that where I want him? I want Seal to be right there. Dugong is slightly better. It gains ice typing, which is underrated. And I probably want Dugong about right there. I think I'd use a Slowbro before I'd use a Slowpoke before I use a Dugong. Grimer and Muck are very good. I love these guys. I think they're really good. I think Grimer is probably going to belong... This is tough because we don't have a lot of poison types on this list that aren't bug as well. I think it's a high D tier, but Muck is a big upgrade. Muck will probably be, if I had to guess, all the way up here. No, he's got to be better than that. Let me think about this. He's not a B tier Pokemon though. He's not. He's probably close actually. I might want to put him... I think he's better than Mega Beedrill. I'd still put Kadabra over him. I think he's right there. I think that's a really fair place for Muck to be. Shelter, let's say you don't get Shell Smash. You're a terrible Pokemon. You're one of the worst Pokemon in the game. You're going to go right there. Cloyster is basically a defensive wall, and it's good competitively because it's a defensive wall. It doesn't really do anything else necessarily. And so because of that, I think competitively it is useful, but like if you're playing this through a playthrough of Pokemon Red, you're not going to have a good time with Cloyster. And I think he belongs right there. Ghastly, Haunter, and Gengar. If it weren't for their terrible moveset, they'd be higher. But Ghastly, because it really doesn't get any moves that are good except Lick until it evolves into Haunter, immediately puts it as one of the worst Pokemon in the game. Haunter then gets his hands on Shadow Punch upon evolution. And once that happens, he's actually a Pokemon again. There's not a lot of Pokemon in the game it can hit, unfortunately, but it is a Pokemon again. And I think it probably belongs right there. And then you jump to Gengar, probably one of the best Pokemon in the game. And Gengar is an A-tier Pokemon. I would say... No, I think I like where it is. I think Rapidash might be a little worse. I think we go there. I think Gengar is a really good Pokemon. And Mega Gengar is a better Pokemon, but it's not that much better. I think Mega Gengar belongs right there. That's probably a good spot for him. Onix. Onix. I'm going to zoom this out too so you guys can see more of the tier list. Onix is the coolest looking, most disappointing Pokemon in the game. Everybody saw this in the anime. They wanted to play the game and catch one of these. And then they found out what it was. And no one was happy with Onix. Onix is going to have to go all the way here. No, that's too generous. Onix deserves to be here. Horrendous Pokemon. And Drowsy, while we're at it. Drowsy is awful, but it is better than probably everything else in D. Hypno is not much better. I would put Hypno just because it's a fully evolved Pokemon. I put it right there. I think Slowpoke's better than it. Krabby and Kingler, I love these guys. I love Krabby and Kingler. I think they're both pretty fun Pokemon to use. Kingler's obviously significantly better, whereas Krabby is more of a C tier Pokemon. I think right there is good. I think Kingler makes the jump to B tier though. I think it probably goes right there. I think that's fair. Oh man, there are so many Pokemon I love in this generation. I see them and I just get excited. I just get so excited when I see them. Voltorb and Electrode are, again, two of the fastest Pokemon in the game. And that makes a big difference when you're an electric type. It matters so much more. I think Voltorb very easily is in the C tier category, and I think he honestly belongs better than Abra. It gets really good moves, it's really fast. Who's stopping this thing? And Electrode is amazing. Electrode is an A tier Pokemon, and I'm going to put Electrode right there. Electrode is just so fast, and it is so powerful all at the same time. I love using this Pokemon. It's very, very good. Execute is one of my favorite Pokemon to use just for fun. It's a pretty bad Pokemon, though, until it evolves. And in general, a pretty bad Pokemon, but I love its unique Grass Psychic typing. That's the thing I like about it the most. I think I would put it near Voltorb, but it's not better. I think right there's a fair spot. And I think Executor, honestly, is only slightly better. I think it's a better Psychic type than Abra, though. I think it can go right there. Cubone and Marowak are another set of disappointing Pokemon that look pretty cool. Marowak is slightly better, don't get me wrong, but Cubone is just, not really it. Not really it at all. I think I would definitely say that Cubone is probably better than Mankey, but it stops there. And Marowak is really not that much better than Cubone. It's not even in B tier. I think it's definitely staying in C tier, and I think it's going to go right here. I think that's fair. Hitmonlee is the good Hitmon Pokemon. It is an A tier Pokemon. It is so powerful. It is so fast. Hitmonlee is that dude. Hitmonchan is the disappointing one out of the group. It doesn't get very good moves either. And it's really just a high C tier Pokemon. It is not an A tier Pokemon at all. Lickitung. I have some thoughts about Lickitung. Because as cool as Lickitung looks, it's just a disappointing Pokemon. It's bulky, and that's where it ends. And honestly, Lickitung, while it's better than Drowsy, is a D tier Pokemon. I would take any of these other Pokemon against a Lickitung. I just think Lickitung is terrible. Coughing and Wheezing are two Pokemon I like, and I think Coughing is really underrated for a first form Pokemon. I think so much underrated that I would actually say that it's better than Machop and all those other Pokemon behind it. Wheezing, on the other hand, gets more defense on top of it, and that is definitely a B tier Pokemon. Rhyhorn and Rhydon were really not redeemed as Pokemon until they got an evolution of Rhyperior. And because of that, unfortunately, they just aren't it. And their typing is really bad, and they just don't get good enough moves, unfortunately. I would argue that Rhyhorn definitely is worse than Diglett, and it probably goes right there. Rhydon, on the other hand, is slightly better, gets better moves, but does it get past C tier? No. Graveler is a better Pokemon than Rhydon, so it's got to go right there. This is not competitive. You can't take Chansey and put an Eviolite on it. And so because of that, all you need is a physical Pokemon, and this thing can't do much. It can soft boil its other Pokemon, so like from a utility standpoint, that might make sense. And if you can keep switching into it the right way, I think it's doable. I really do. But other than that, Chansey is not a good Pokemon. It's definitely a C tier Pokemon. I would say it's at the top of the C tier category. Tangela. I just pierced the air with my laugh there. Tangela is a terrible Pokemon. Ekans is better. Spearo's better. Seal's not better. We'll go there. Kangaskhan. Hello, Kangaskhan. This is my guy. I love Kangaskhan. This is my guy. Kangaskhan is a really, really good Pokemon. This is an A tier Pokemon, guys. This is what you want out of a normal type. Kangaskhan does everything Snorlax does, but better. It's stronger. It's not as bulky. It's slightly less bulky, but it's way stronger. And then Mega Kangaskhan with Parental Bond, one of the most broken Mega abilities in the game. It is a high A tier. Phenomenal. Horsey and Seadra. Horsey is absolutely garbage. Seadra, also garbage. Is it better than what I have in here? It can't be better than Wartortle. Is it worse than Cubone? Yeah. I would take a Mankey. I think right there's good. Oh. It keeps getting worse. There are some stinkers in this list, man. There are some stinkers in this list. Right there. Staryu and Starmie. I think Starmie is definitely a high D tier. I think Starmie is very good. And I would put Starmie in an A tier. Good typing, fast, powerful, strong. It's impossible to beat the second gym when you don't know what you're prepared for. This thing is elite. It's an A tier Pokemon. Mr. Mime. We're getting to some of the really good Pokemon now. Mr. Mime is a B tier Pokemon. And I would actually put Mr. Mime here. It's the second best Psychic type in the game, behind Alakazam. Well, actually third if you count Mewtwo, or fourth if you count Mew as well. But non-legendary, second best Psychic type in the game, but it's not like super strong. Not super strong. Scyther is that boy though. If Generation 1, if bug types weren't so bad in Generation 1, I could put Scyther at an A. But Bug is just so bad. Scyther's a low B. Because he just doesn't get good enough moves to make it worth. Jinx with the Psychic Ice typing is really underrated, but it's a high C for me. Electabuzz and Magmar. Oh, I love both of these Pokemon. I do. I really do. I think Electabuzz rivals Raichu, but I think Raichu's a better Pokemon. I personally think Electabuzz as well is just a low B tier, and I like all the Pokemon past it a little bit more. Magmar, on the other hand, is one of my favorite fire types. And it does, in my opinion, it is a better fire type than Ninetales is. But does it end there? I think it does, and I think when I look at this, I would probably put Magmar as well at a low B. Pinsir. This is an A tier Pokemon. Pinsir, even though it's a bug type, is just so good, and it gets so many fighting moves to make up for it because it's already such a great physical attacker that the fact that it doesn't really get that many strong bug moves doesn't really hurt it. It gets a lot of good fighting moves. I think Hitmonlee's definitely better than it. I think he probably fits here. I think I would probably put him there. I think that's good. Mega Pinsir, on the other hand, is much better, and I would put Mega Pinsir here. Tauros. Tauros. He is a high B Pokemon. He's not perfect, but he is very good. I'd say he's the top of the B tier. All right, there's the worst Pokemon in the game. And then we have Gyarados. Of course, guys, Gyarados is going to be another S tier Pokemon. Gyarados is everything you hope for when you go through the pain of leveling up a Magikarp, and it comes true in full force. Gyarados is an excellent Pokemon. It does everything you wanted it to. The only thing they missed out on, just like with Charizard, is making it a Dragon type. Mega Gyarados, however, and I'm not even kidding when I say this, is a high A tier. Gyarados was a water flying type. A water flying type. Everybody wanted it to be a water dragon type, or a pure dragon type, or a dragon flying type, or something like that. Mega's come across, and the Pokemon Company thinks, we can give Gyarados a Mega. Fans have been asking for a dragon type this whole time. We should give him a dragon type Mega Evolution type change. That would be great, right? And then Game Freak steps in and they say, well, why would we do that when we can make him a water dark type? Stupid. And then they make him a water dark type and they ruin him. No, he is an A tier. Lapras. Lapras is definitely worse than Blastoise. It's better than the rest behind it. Moving on. Ditto. Ditto's hard to rank because you basically transform into anything. Does that mean it can go anywhere? So it technically could be S tier, right? Because it could go anywhere. It could turn into anything. So it's technically S tier. Eevee. Eevee is trash. I mean, it's not like trash, but it's not good. The whole point and the appeal of Eevee is that you evolve it, of course. And so I think that Eevee is right there. And I think Vaporeon, one of the better evolutions, probably belongs right here. Jolteon, the best evolution, goes here. And Flareon is absolute trash. And where is the rest of the fire types? It's not even on par with other fire types. I mean, it's like right here. Porygon, another underrated Pokemon that unfortunately needed an evolution to really exceed expectations, and it took a while to get there. I'm going to put Porygon at a C tier, and I think it's probably around Wigglytuff area, right there. Disappointing fossil Pokemon number 1 is going to go right here. Slightly less disappointing fossil Pokemon number 2 is going to go right here. Other disappointing fossil Pokemon number 1 is probably going to go here. I like Ammonite better. And slightly better, but still disappointing, less disappointing fossil Pokemon will go there. Aerodactyl. That is another A tier Pokemon. It gets a lot of good moves. It's a physical Pokemon with 2 physical types. I think a lot of things are going well for this thing, and I would actually probably put him right there. Mega Aerodactyl is just a better version of Aerodactyl in almost every way, shape, or form. Would I say it's better than Parental Bond? I would not, and I messed up with Gyarados earlier. I put Gyarados back there too. I'd probably, I'll leave that. I think that's a good spot for him. Snorlax. Iconic, In regards to how iconic Snorlax is, it's an S tier Pokemon. However, in regards to what Snorlax can do and what Snorlax can and what Snorlax really does in battle, it's not higher than a B. But I would say it's probably about right there. Right in the middle. It's legendary and pseudo-legendary time. Let's do the pseudos first. Let's do Dratini. It's garbage. Dratini goes about right there. Dragonair is a slightly better garbage, but still doesn't get much. It's probably right there. And then Dragonite is an S tier Pokemon. I think Dragonite's better than Charizard. No. It is better than Charizard. Dragonite's better than Charizard. It is. Mega Dragonite. Wait, does Mega Dragonite not exist? Guys, there's a Mega Dragonite, right? I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy, right? There's a Mega Dragonite. That's a thing that exists. I'm not crazy. Tell me that exists. Mega Dragonite. Oh gosh, guys, there's no Mega Dragonite. I could have sworn there was a Mega Dragonite. Okay, well, moving on. Articuno, in my opinion, the worst of the 3 legendary birds. It's still legendary. It's still an A tier. I think it's going right there. Zapdos, in my opinion, the best of the legendary birds and the top of the A tier. Moltres, somewhere in the middle of the 2. Right there. Okay, I think we can clean up now. Mewtwo, Mega Mewtwo X, Mega Mewtwo Y, Mew. Ditto is still the best because he can transform into any of them. This is the tier list. Let me zoom out so you guys can see it all in the same window. Oh, that's too far. Can you guys see that? Let me zoom in one more. Okay, that's the tier list. That is the Generation 1 tier list. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you disagree. Let me know whatever you want in the comments. I think I was fair. Once I had a few Pokemon in and I had the bar set, it was very easy to tell, okay, would I take this Pokemon over another Pokemon? And that kind of helped me make my decision. So I think this works really, really well for me. I think this helps. So because of that, I'm pretty happy with my list. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. It was a long video, but I'm sure it was worth it. And I will see you guys in the next one.